and I do know got it recording.
Sorry, I forgot to push the go button.
It's all right. 1, 2, 3, go. Once again, this is Noel Tuttle, your VP at your service. So my goal for this is to communicate to you guys what's happening monthly, right? So it'd be a debriefing, basically, things that are issues, things that are being worked on, what's coming down the pipeline. It's also an open communication for people, whether you're a paying union member or not. As you progress and see the types of things that are being changed, I believe it'll also improve participation in the union. I think people will be more educated on what the union does and the importance of a union. So with that being said, there's quite a few things I want to openly address. We just had a labor and management meeting this morning. There's honestly some items in here I personally had no clue about. So I do want to educate you guys. There are some items in here that I have personally been doing, but that's only because I went out of my way to dig and find answers for proper training in versus onboarding. Personally, when I started this company, let's see, 2019, I'm a baby medic, what they would call zero to hero. They don't teach you on vents, they don't teach you on pumps. When I first came here, it was a very electric feeling. We were growing at a rapid pace. We got Glendale, Goodyear contracts that were pending and ended up getting them. My first day out in the field as a medic on my own, I had only turned on the buttons and pressed the buttons of a vent and a pump. I learned all that stuff on YouTube and through very hard experiences, which is why I'm quite adamant and like teaching, because I like to help people evade those hard lessons I learned. However, it did make me a better medic. So I do understand from the IF side. I understand from a supervisor side. I did step up for a little bit. And now I'm in Glendale on 153. So a few of the things I'll get started with. I'll go ahead and start going down all these items. I'm going to leave this as me addressing all of these items. And then at the very end afterwards, it will be open questions. So you guys are free to go ahead and start asking any questions you like. Casey does have something she's got to go to. So I am leaning a little bit on her wisdom on quite a few things. So I may not have the answer directly, but again, this is an open conversation platform. So feel free to voice your opinion, questions you may have, and it's something I can follow up with. Top of the order, first thing is going to be the drug policy with Zofran and Benadryl. As we all know, a few bad apples, has changed quite a bit of the policies in regards to drugs. When I first started here, drugs were just kept in the truck. Everything was paper. And as time progressed, incidents happened. We went to the safe system and operations. Now we have an issue with Zofran and Benadryl being locked up and with the narcotics. Although they're not considered controlled substances by Arizona standard AZDHS, they are company policy to be locked up, tagged, and each time these items are used, you are to fill out a new sheet. Is it common sense that these items are with narcotics right now? No, absolutely not. Right off the bat, I was very hesitant of it. In fact, the only education I have gotten off of this, other than the fact I am now VP and sitting on the inside having these conversations, was from the grapevine knowledge of just the crew that transferred over care. So I came to work one day and these items were locked up with narcotics. My first thought process was this causes more problems than it fixes, because now every time you're using Zofran and Benadryl, you are exposing your narcotics, which leaves way more discrepancy, in my opinion. In fact, I had a medic student on his last shift in his last hours, opening up the narc box to get Zofran, and we hit a bump and all of the narcotics went flying in the air. Thank God none of them broke. However, there are updates. There is an incoming separated lock container that will hold the Zofran and Benadryl. When that will happen, I am not sure, but we have been assured that management is working on that. That comes with things of past practice. I know it's not a commonly liked term. However, it is a reality. When I first started, and quite recently, within the last 6 months, people have used the cubby right there at the captain's seat to hold your drugs, such as Benadryl, Zofran, Narcan, anything that would be commonly used and is not a narcotic. I am telling you right now, if you are still doing that, you need to stop doing that. This is a very serious policy that will be coming out. If people don't start following that, it will end up being into disciplinary actions. This is coming at a priority high level. And as much as you may have a habit of that, I highly recommend you, when you're on shift now or you're coming on shift, if that is still happening, that you fix that right away. There will be inspections of trucks randomly, as there already has been. So go ahead and get ahead of that before you get caught up in it. How to properly clock in from one shift to another. Again, when I started at this company, there were things like a gas card that you could use if you were driving to a different station. I was personally told in the past by a supervisor to clock out of my shift and then clock in there and drive to my next shift if I picked up an overtime shift on the second day. That is not the correct way to do that. And again, if you are doing this, you should immediately stop. There will be policies that will be coming out and communicated by the company, I imagine by email. The correct way to do it is to clock out at the location that you're at for that station and then drive to the next location and then clock in. That is the correct way to do it. Again, if you have been told something different in the past, please change that habit. Response times and shoe times, these things are being heavily investigated, and they're also using Atlas now, which has much more data than before in Street Eagle. It is a shoe time of 60 seconds in the day and 90 seconds at night. That means that you're in your truck and the truck is rolling. Truck rolling doesn't mean that you can fool the system by driving a couple miles per hour and stopping. These things are being heavily watched. Please make sure that you are following these rules, as things will be changing, especially if and when we get this Glendale contract. Things will be tightened up quite a bit. Attendance, this is becoming a problem. It's unfortunately become part of the culture again. Call outs are becoming more frequent. If you don't like the call volume or what's going on in your city, maybe it's time to find a different position, a different location, because again, Maricopa is becoming much more strict on these policies that they've been lenient on for a long time. There are a lot of good workers out there, and there are a lot of people that take advantage of the system. And because of the way the system is, they have to make rules that apply to all people. With that being said, my goal with all this is to build out good company culture. That's going to start with these real dinner table type conversations. Please feel free to voice your opinion. I'm here to listen to it. I will also be giving pushback. There are people that are not taking care of their ambulances. They're not taking care of their stations. It is going to be up to us to self-police people. So if you're getting on shift and your station is a mess, your truck is a wreck, you have something missing, you need to start self-policing. Stop avoiding conflict. Like, you need to have confrontation with people in a healthy manner. If you feel like these things are not being fixed by having a conversation with the crew members, then escalate it. Include me in the email and the supervisor / management of that city, and then we can just escalate it from there. That includes being at hospitals for an hour and a half, 2 hours plus, even over an hour for BLS calls, and you're not holding a wall. This is causing major problems in our cities because the people that are doing their job and clearing in a pretty reasonable manner, they're now being posted on corners and they're being burnt out. So we're causing a lot of the problems with each other. And some of it is understandable. It does feel unfair about how some of these posting systems work. I personally have not been presented with the information that Maricopa refers to, such as heat maps, response times, etc. But I will eventually get more information about that. There are reasoning behind what's going on, so don't think it's just to treat you bad or they don't care about you. This is a business, and with that business, there are standards that have to be met. And with that, we are going to have to find ways to improve our systems. Safety harnesses, that's a hot topic. I personally was instantly not a fan of those and instantly wanted to reject it myself, but that's not a hill I'm willing to die on. Casey has escalated it. It's at a litigation point, but it doesn't appear like we're going to win this battle. It's a very weird situation. My personal opinion is that if you have locked buckles that require a key or key-like feature, you are restraining that patient. I agree with you if you believe that. And in my opinion, in our protocols, that every call is an ALS call. Every call should have a cardiac monitor because that patient is now restrained to the stretcher. It doesn't make sense on ANO patients. It doesn't make sense on patients that are clinically dead and we're doing CPR on, and the transfer into the trauma bay can be a little rocky. However, this is company policy. So with that being said, be mindful of that. In the meantime, we're doing all we can. We've escalated it through priority lawyers. Casey, I don't know if you have anything else you want to say about that.
I do. I put my hand up.
Perfect.
No, just real quick, kind of how this unfolded, just so you guys know that we've done way more about this little weird plastic device than I've had to do over larger issues in the last couple of years. But so when they hit the streets initially last year, whenever that was, the major concern was how does the crew member, the medic or the EMT, how did they even undo the buckle with that guard on there? Because there was nothing provided at that time. So the answer was to get a whole bunch of blank keys and provide those to the crews so they could use that basically piece of metal to undo the buckle. And at the time, that was when Ryan was still VP. I thought it was a dead issue. I thought, as far as anything else to do with the buckle guards, it was just kind of done and everybody was okay with it. After that, months went by before they started putting them on additional units. So when they started putting them on additional units, specifically the EMS units, is when it became an issue again. I'll tell you that the day that it really hit the fan, I was in negotiations with the AMR group, and we probably had a combined 150 years of experience on the call, and everybody immediately agrees that that's a type of restraint. I reached out to friends that I have at DHS, other locals, pre-hospital coordinators, EMS coordinators for a couple different fire departments, and everybody agrees that it's a restraint. So I went to DHS for the medical director for AZDHS, Dr. Bradley, sent her an email. She responded and forwarded me to one of the bureau chiefs that's kind of oversees the ambulance equipment side. I had in some email exchanges with her. She just cited some state law that said that it wasn't, defined as a restraint. So this kind of fell into one of those things that because it doesn't say they can't, therefore they can, which, I appreciate that argument. I use that argument a lot. But in this case, it boils down to patient safety. So in the middle of all that, we got word that one of the Tennessee outfits was filing actual paperwork with the state of Tennessee to get them barred, basically. So that's going to take probably weeks for that to go anywhere. So I was told, hey, maybe you guys won't have to worry about this. Maybe Tennessee is going to kind of take care of it for you. So in the meantime, I did some additional research on state law, and a lot of states have codes that require the Department of Health for that state to approve any individual item that goes into an ambulance, whether it's a bite stick or a type of monitor or an oxygen delivery device. It has to go through some type of approval process. The state of Arizona does not have that process. What they have is basically a blanket rule that says if it's FDA approved, it doesn't have to go through an additional approval process for the state. So I started diving into the FDA after that, ended up exchanging some emails with the FDA and was told that there would not be an FDA approval for a device like that. It would be, crap, the word just fell out of my head, not approval, but basically it was screened and that they don't have to approve it because it's not a medication or a medical device. But they couldn't find any record of that for any type of buckle guard. There is one on the market that claims to be FDA stamp of approval. And it's a type that basically has a child-proof medication bottle cap on the top. So that one supposedly is been given the stamp of okay by the FDA, but not any other type. So that's kind of where we're at right now. I've been waiting for documentation from Priority as a whole, not just local Maricopa Ambulance, but Priority as a whole. They promised to provide me some documentation from the corporate medical director, also some other documentation saying that this was a safety device and not a medical device, therefore it can't be considered a restraint, blah, blah, blah. And I still haven't gotten that. So it is on the list to follow up with Michelle about this week. She's about at the end of her timeline that she promised she would have it to me by. So we'll update you guys as soon as we know. It's just, this has become way more in the weeds than I ever imagined that it would be once, I heard everybody agreed that this was a type of restraint. So we'll get there, or, I just don't think locally we're going to win the argument based on law, because there is no law. So we just kind of have to wait and see on a national level what they find out. So, but that's it. That was a lot. Sorry.
No, you're good. Thanks for the input. I mean, this is a really big issue with people right now. So I want to make sure people understand the involvement and the level we've taken this and just the weird gray area that it's at. While I have you on there speaking, I could just go off the CBA, but I'm going to have you do it. Can you explain to people the proper way for union representation? You feel like you're having a conflict, you're having an issue with the supervisor, or you're having some type of disciplinary action done?
Sorry, that's very widespread question, but I can tell you one, you as an individual employee should always try to handle things on your level or between you and the supervisor. So if it's an issue that you're having, with your station or your unit or even your partner, something like that, obviously go to the supervisor first. You decide how important that issue is and what that timeline is for you. So if the supervisor doesn't get back to you within the end of your shift about, an issue with your unit, go ahead and elevate it, put it in writing, CC one of us. I would recommend any communication that you do that you're looking for some type of outcome or some type of resolution to, I would always recommend putting it in writing. And this is something that you're going to hear from not only union people, but company people. I mean, throughout your career, you're going to hear, hey, thanks for the talk, but can you send me an email? Just back it up. Even honestly, even when you call out sick and you call into the crew line or whatever the process is, I always recommend just sending a text message to the supervisor also and saying, hey, I had to call out for tomorrow. I'm going to use sick time or whatever the message is, because that's something that you can track. But always I always recommend involving somebody as an unbiased party. Hey, just have eyes on this union person, fill in the blank union person, and then elevate it from there. Obviously, Noel's doing a great job so far with the communication piece, and he's eager to learn, but he still has a lot to learn. So a lot of times, Noel's going to look at you and say, I don't have the answer to that. So let me follow up with Casey or Hector or Clint or Kenny. And then he'll follow back up with you. But if he doesn't, it's the same rules apply. Follow it up with an email or a text message. You guys have a really good thing going with your messaging on Facebook and the group text and all that. I think that that's really super helpful, especially just to get the word out about new policies and whatnot. As far as dealing with the company, obviously, we always preach the Weingarten right piece. If you get into a situation where having a conversation with a supervisor and you feel like this is turning into some type of inquisition, or they're asking you too many questions about something that you've done or maybe your partner has done, and you think that this could lead to discipline for either you or your partner or someone else, it's never a bad idea to say, hey, do I need union representation for this? What is this about? And if they answer you and it makes you feel even more squirrely, just ask them to stop the meeting and say that you want to call for union representation. Maricopa is good about having union representation either present, so they know that they're going to call you in for a disciplinary meeting or an investigatory meeting. So they're going to call the union ahead of time and say, hey, we're bringing in Noel to talk about this incident that happened last week. Are you available to come down to ops before we even call him in? We're trying to kind of actually steer them away from doing that and let the supervisor reach out to the employee first and say, hey, we're going to bring you in next shift to talk about this incident that happened last week. Are you going to want union representation? And then Noel would say yes or no. If he said yes, then he would reach out to whoever he wants his rep to be. So say he calls Kenny and says, hey, Kenny, they're bringing me in next week to talk about this incident that happened. Can you be my rep? And Kenny will say, sure. And then Kenny will reach out to that supervisor and set up a meeting that works for everyone, most likely for the day that Noel's on shift, or maybe early in the morning when Kenny is coming off shift, something like that. But they will come to a mutually agreed upon time. At some point during that course, you will sign a union rep form or a waiver of Weingarten rights, or I can't remember what the form's called, but you're going to sign a form that says that you either requested or decline union representation. And then you'll go to your meeting. So it's important that, and just so you guys understand what was happening, especially while we were pretty shorthanded before the election, what was happening a lot is Hector was getting called all hours of the day, every day, to come down and basically sit at ops while they waited to call down a crew for some investigation. And the supervisors got used to having that open ability to call Hector when he was maybe being the rover or he was on an overtime shift, and they were able to call him down and basically he would be available whenever they needed him. And we have to get away from that. It's not fair to the union reps to dedicate even more of their off time to union work when there's time dedicated for that, and we can spend time organizing the meetings. So maybe Noel only has to go down to ops to take care of reps for a few hours on a Tuesday versus one on Monday, one on Tuesday, one on Thursday. So we're just trying to get back to kind of the way that it was meant to be, the way that it used to be. Ryan had a really good relationship with a lot of management. So a lot of times management would just call Ryan directly and say, hey, we're calling Kenny in to talk about this incident. We're pretty sure he's guilty. Just kidding, Kenny, but we're pretty sure he's guilty, and here's our evidence. And then, Ryan would look over everything and say, I agree, but let's go ahead and call him in, or no, you guys are totally wrong. You're misinterpreting this. Let's fight it. Let's do the whole thing. And that's a fine way to do it too. But just calling people in, it's a big surprise for everybody involved, isn't fair. And it's not fair to you guys. It's not fair to us. So we're working with management to get us back to, the way it should be, the way we used to do it, which worked just fine. So if you get into a situation where they start asking you questions or whatever, just ask them to stop the meeting and say you want to call a union rep and call somebody, because that's probably the best course of action so it doesn't get messy on the back end. If even, and just to be clear, if you sit through an entire investigation meeting and you answer all their questions and you didn't ask for a rep, and then the next shift you show up and they hand you a written for whatever it was, you can still union up at that point. Please always remember the words comply now, grieve later. So if they hand you a written, don't make a big deal about it. Don't try to argue. Sign the paper, walk out, and call the union and say, hey, they just gave me a written for this thing. You might get yelled at depending on who you're dealing with about why you didn't call for union to begin with. But we can always help you with a grievance on the back end. So just because you say no in the beginning doesn't mean you can't say yes later. But I always recommend have a union rep present, unless it's something simple like attendance. I mean, if you called out, and that still is the same thing. If you're pretty sure you called out for all those days and you're out of sick time and the whole thing, and you deserve the verbal, go ahead and go through the process and sign it. And then if you think of something the next day, like, oh crap, I didn't call out that day because I remember ABC, go ahead and call one of us and we'll look into it for you and make sure everything's on the up and up or not. So I hope that made sense, and I hope that answered your question.
No, it definitely did. And thank you. That was a really good explanation that I think a lot of people don't have a full grasp on. So I'm glad you're able to explain it that way. Moving down the list, a few more items. Casey, if you have to go, let me know. CBA negotiations are coming up. Talking to Hector, we're going to be picking some members from each system to sit down, brainstorm what's people are wanting, explaining that whole process. I'm completely new to this. I am the president of my HOA, so I am, quite savvy on board business. However, negotiations for contracts is something completely new to me. I do own my own business as well, so I do understand business, but this will be quite new. It will be definitely the time for people to speak up. I will probably even hold another one of these meetings, maybe on the last Tuesday, opened up at the end of the debriefing, and people can voice their opinions there if they weren't chosen from your city. And I want to make sure everybody feels like they're being heard. Anything that's money related, I've had a few people that are asking me about these things. The reason why I'm not addressing those things directly is because those aren't things that I can fix right now. So right now I'm doing what needs to be done, which is inquiring open communication, addressing the dysfunction in certain areas, and also just building up a community of people that want this place to be better. It's up to us to start self-policing and working on our side. Again, I hear out a lot of you people. It feels really unfair about a lot of things. But let's work together to figure out how we can make this better. With that being said, Mike Norton recently left. So bear with Lindsay and Jason DuPont. They are filling in on that position, so they have their plates full. Glendale Fire Department. I'm building out a squad. And this is going to be like a liaison kind of squad to build out community of proper education on fire interactions, professionalism, and respect. You may or may not have heard there's been a couple occurrences that happened at the station at 157. I don't need to go into detail about those things right now, but some of the things that happened were completely inappropriate. One that did happen that I can discuss that's appropriate for me to talk about right now is just the disrespect of not acknowledging crews. So there's a couple things behind this. Right now, the rule is it's a recliner style invitation. If you know what that means in the firehouse, you are not to sit on those recliners unless you're invited to, right? You are not to go into these fire stations unless you are welcomed in by the current crew that is on shift. So if you were welcomed in at a different time and you came in, do not show up at the station and just go inside and sit down wherever you want and do whatever you like. This is causing issues with our relationship with the Glendale Fire Department. So again, as of right now, when you are posted at those stations, if the crew comes out and invites you in and they are educated as to what is going on, you are not to go into the station unless invited in. They are working on opening the training room at 157, so that should be a style of you being posted there and coming in. Goodyear, that is up in the air in regards to what trucks will be downed and how long that will happen. Over the next 3 years, they have time to launch all of their rescues. So as the trucks are being put up from Goodyear, we will be downing the truck from Goodyear on the Maricopa side. I've been informed there's no way for me to find out what trucks those will be or that timeline other than a maximum of 3 years. Selena, question, if they aren't inviting crews in all the time, how's that going to work when heat advisory goes into effect? That's a great question. It is on my list to address. Jamie was in the meeting this morning and I did bring up heat advisory, and as your president has advised you, we will be bringing that back up to get information on how that's going to work. We have done that for the remaining years that I've been here, so we will follow up on what that will be. As of now, you are to post at the post that you are being sent. The 1 mile radius is a courtesy for you to be able to get something to eat, if you have to get gas, if you stop and use the restroom. It is not to be utilized to be at locations for long periods of time and pushing the limits of how far that is. Are we all guilty of that? Sure, I can even admit that myself. What's going on right now is the very high intensity and scrutiny of the contract, our response times, and the CON. I know how unfair a lot of this posting feels, especially since we're working in busy systems. Again, we are fighting tooth and bone to make sure that we can make this as comfortable and as fair as possible to employees. Right now, this is a very intense time with the way that things are. As this new contract comes up and if we secure it, these types of things can be negotiated and we will be much more involved in that. Updates on Goodyear drugs and supply restock. As of this moment, it is a 1-for-1 in regards to supplies. So you run a call with Goodyear, you restock them based off of what was ran on that call. You are not to give supplies to them that was not ran on that call. So if they see you at the hospital and they want some supplies, you can inform them that they can contact whoever it is they talk to directly on their captain side, or they can follow up with Lindsay as needed. Drugs are to only be restocked out of your drug box. So if the drugs were used out of your drug box on the call, those drugs get restocked. If fire uses them, that is Goodyear Fire uses those drugs, you are not to restock them. I will be sending out a part-time paying union member survey. We've had quite a lot of inquiries about part-time members wanting to be paying union members. So I do want to hear out everybody and see if that is something that you guys would be okay with, if you have issues with it, and start the conversation. SISM. SISM is a Maricopa ran project. They are working with the union. It is in the CBA. These positions are interviewed for. They are not positions that people have voted people to be in. So that is clarification for that. They are working with Maricopa management on putting together policies and SOPs, so that system will be improved. So be patient with that. Big one, documentation on 901s, cancels. When you are using any code supplies, yes, this may be a shock to every single person who hears me. You are to chart all of those supplies on that cancellation chart. Yes, you are to chart all of the supplies that you use on your cancellation chart. My intuition from the beginning with this IO issue was that that was the problem. I believe that is a pretty big part of the problem. Also, people stocking supplies and hoarding way more than they needed. Those are very expensive items. Do we think people are stealing them? Could it be possible? Sure, but most likely it is going to be fire who takes them when you are not there and takes a handful of them, or we're not charting those supplies, which is, again, what's happening. The only thing I remember about charting 901s was I got two different responses: chart everything, not chart anything. I was told if we don't transport, we don't get paid, so not to bother. Again, I am giving you direct information from our directors and people that are educating what is the correct way to do this. If you've not been doing this, this is now what you should be doing. I was under the interpretation, as I investigated this, was kind of a very gray area, that if we don't transport, that we are not billing the patient. I have been advised that the fire department's chart is being attached to ours, and they are able to get that information, and they are billing the insurances. So again, pushing forward, 901s, that is codes that are being ran with supplies, those are to be charted on your cancellation charts. I personally always write in the narrative on any cancellation just a CYA, why I was canceled. I highly recommend that you write in the narrative at least a very basic detail of what happened. You walked in, CPR was started, XYZ. You don't have to write some long narrative, but at least something you can refer to remember the call. And I personally always write direct patient care and interventions managed by this engine, this LT, because they are the first responders technically of the call, and their chart is what is referred to. Our chart is what's used for billing. Shirts have been approved. That's great news, and it's being worked on. Thanks, Casey. Appreciate it. Also, 150 had like 30 select, 30 tubings on the truck, 50 blue dots, literally every shelf. Yeah. So that's part of the things I'm talking about, where people are just overstocking the trucks. Again, I'm building out squads to be a company culture improvement for people within the company that I think would be approachable and help to educate what I feel like is quite needed, and also just slipping through the training and onboarding here. So data is being pulled from dispatch, not alarm. So it is very important that we are educating our dispatch on scene, departing at hospital XYZ. This is the data that is being pulled for all of the pie charts and information for response times. They do not pull that information from alarm. So there is quite a lot of back work that dispatch is doing in order to follow up to get correct times, referring back to the phones, recorded lines. So now that you have this knowledge, I personally always thought that it was alarms times that were the concrete answer, and it is dispatches times. Will they have our names on them? What are you referring to? Shirts. That's a great question. I'll write that down. I'm not sure. I would assume so. I would assume so. Well, as of now, that is going to be the end of my presentation. I am going to be launching 2 fun little programs a month. One is going to be a sticker collection, and the other is going to be a Daisy-like program you see at hospitals, and it's employee appreciation. You guys will email me, and I'll follow up with an email about this stuff and post it on the channels. 2, one's going to be the stickers. You guys come up with fun ideas, appropriate, obviously. And the winner that I think is the funnest and most unique idea will get that sticker in production. The second one is going to be Justin requested scratch and sniff. All right, we'll put it at the bottom of the pool for Justin. The other one is going to be company appreciation. This is going to be you guys contacting me through email as well and just giving me a kudos of this person did this and went above and beyond. And, you know, these are things like day trucks constantly hopping calls for 24s or hopping calls even for day trucks. Or if you saw them go above and beyond in their service, whatever it is. Again, I'll be sending out this information and I will follow up with what those prizes are, TBD. So at this time, you guys feel free to go ahead and mute yourself and ask any questions you like. Please be respectful. Obviously, I'm not going to have all the answers to every question. Please feel free to voice your opinions. This is a recorded line. And go ahead. Bueller? I doubt nobody has questions. No, just go ahead and unmute yourself.
So, Noel, in terms of the heat advisory, can we please make sure that interfacility is taken into account? Because I remember being on a Dignity truck and sitting posted for 12 hours straight outside of Chandler Regional Hospital. My station is a couple miles away. I could very easily post there. I have equidistance from Mercy, Chandler, East Elliott. It's still the same distance for me to get out to Levine, but they had us sitting there roasting in a truck.
Absolutely, Sarah. Is that the only location that's usually an issue like that?
For if we were level 2 ALS Dignity, we would post to Chandler Regional and then, or excuse me, Mercy and Levine. Levine, I had a good relationship where the doctors would invite us in, but that's not the case for every crew. But I do know that specifically at least one ALS Dignity, so either 40 or 41, and then 30 and 31 at any given time are spending multiple hours posted at Chandler Regional, just roasting. And our station is not that far. We could very easily go and post there.
That sounds like something easily to address. Is there anything else?
Hey, Noel, it's Don.
Hey there, Mr. Day.
Hey, I'd like to see a push to drop this past practices and start redeveloping everything brand new with your new administration. What are your thoughts on that?
I am a fan of hash and past practices. What should we dub the new practices? Pushing forward practices?
Yeah, day one or whatever the case may be, but we see past practices aren't working.
But Noel practices. Nah, again, guys, this is gonna take everyone coming together, right? Like I will gladly put the target on my back. I will gladly stand up for you guys. I will gladly call out the dysfunction. As some of you may know, I can also be quite assertive towards our own, right? Like if I see people are not acting appropriately or becoming part of the problem, I'm gonna have a one-on-one and a coaching with people. But I'm firmly believe that we can turn this place around. It is going to take all of us coming together, communicating, and believing that we're actually going to change this place instead of just complaining. Because for a long time, we've just been complaining, and for good reason. We've gone through COVID. We've heard of $35,000 bonuses for new hires. There's a lot of things that are quite upsetting. However, at this point, it is a time for change. So let's come together. It's actually a really exciting time because AMR is negotiating and coming to a final agreement on their new contract. Our CBA is up this year for negotiation. That means that typically that AMR contract is going to be a new baseline because Maricopa is going to have to be competitive in the market.
So I have a thing, and I'm not sure if anyone from 1815 is here, but talking about what Kenny says about the posting plan in Goodyear. So 1815, I feel bad for them because they were not in quarters all night last night because they were
Yeah.
posted in Goodyear.
Yeah.
And is there going to be something to help them? Because I feel really bad for those crews because they have a station. It's at 150, but I didn't see them at all after 11 last night because they were in Goodyear posted.
No, I have been one to say that I feel like 1815 / better known as 306 has been the slave truck of EMS Maricopa. They, when it started at 306 and the amount of IF calls and EMS calls, and then they got moved for Goodyear Glendale. Believe me when I say I am standing up for everything you guys are talking about. There's a lot of resistance for reasons that are being said that I have not personally seen actual proof and evidence of. But also, what I've been informed of today with 1815 is that is considered an IF surge truck. That is not considered an EMS dedicated to Goodyear or Glendale. But what are they doing? They are filling in the gaps for Goodyear and Glendale, especially since Goodyear, let's be honest, is a sinking ship right now. We have a relationship with that fire department that is coming to an end. How long until that time? We don't know, other than it's going to be up to 3 years. Now we're having problems with people not wanting to work out there, right? Because the posting plan. Again, I hear you guys out. This line is being recorded. Maricopa needs to hear you guys out. You guys need to voice your concerns. At the same time, they should be explaining to people why it's this way, how come it's happening this way, but also being heard from input from other people. How can we improve this system? I personally have never seen any type of posting plan that's been formulated asking and surveying people that are in the field. So I hear you, and I'm sure you guys agree with what I'm saying.
Yeah, and I understand that 1815 is seen as an IF truck, but they're up for 24 hours. So
yeah, let's be honest.
For DHS, they have to go back to a station with a bed.
Yeah, and let's be honest. Who knows? Maybe that ends up turning into 212. Yeah, because as these concerns are being raised, this is what the company is using to fulfill the needs of the company. So do I find it fair? And the way that it works with how busy our systems, and let's be honest, the most tiring thing is the driving. Or, the fact that our calls are usually, oh shit, or bullshit. And a lot of the times the calls are BS, and then actual emergent calls kick out and we're understaffed or we don't have any ambulances available. And especially that truck, the amount of driving. I agree 100%. I've written it down. I will follow back up. But again, if you guys have something to say, you want to get educated, CC me or somebody in the union and follow up with the person that is the director of your city. Lindsay's in Goodyear and Chandler, I believe, and DuPont has Glendale.
So is there going to be a change to the posting plan for Goodyear? That's what Kenny asked earlier.
So the reason why this conversation got brought up in the labor management was I was addressing how it's being evaluated for levels clearing. So 1815, from what I was being told by Jamie, who is going to provide me with the current posting plan, 1815 is not considered a dedicated Goodyear truck. So that means the Goodyear trucks have to be at a level 3. That doesn't include 1815 as that number. So the thing that I brought up, which is something that people are concerned with, and I am as well, when people are taking an hour and a half, 2+ hours consistently on calls at the hospital, and we can look up what those calls were, and they're not something to have that much time at the hospital for, we need to start self-policing. Contact on-duty soup, educate them on what's going on, and please just CC me in the email as well. so that we need to have a paper trail, because what's happening is it's just word of mouth. You call ODS, they say, okay, I'll take care of it. They may be busy, they're doing something else, they forget, somebody else calls, and there's just no accountability. Everything, just CC me. Everything needs to have a paper trail. You called ODS and you brought something up and it's something relevant, I have no problem being CC'd on that. But at this point, from what I'm being understood, is that is the ODS's job to make sure that crews are not staying at the hospitals for inconsiderate amounts of time. But let's be honest, ODSs are overwhelmed with all the duties they're being given. They're not tracking that. So again, it's going to be up to us to self-police, because that's affecting the posting system. Can't dispatch use unit status on Medic 182. What does that mean?
I think they're talking about the Goodyear 182.
Yeah, so in the conversation Sarah asked us if Medic 182 is being accounted for in our levels. I said no, but they should be. Then Selena said we don't have a way to track or know when 182 is in service or where they are in regard to them being closer to calls, I thought. So I was like, well, can't dispatch use the unit status? Because, like, you know, how was it used, 306 used when they had levels and stuff and they're able to clear them kind of?
Again, this is something I do not know. If anybody would know, it would be Selena or somebody that's Kenny being in dispatch.
It looks like Kenny said they're only brought down when there's 0 ambos.
They'll
Correct.
always,
yeah, they don't move.
Okay, so they're like a traditional fire system of them coming out of their own station. How do we self-police when units are taking 1.5 hours at hospital? Again, call ODS, let them know what's going on. If that doesn't get resolved within 10 minutes of you noticing that, feel free, and I highly recommend everything is in a paper trail. You email the supervisors that are in that system and CC me in it. You guys, I don't mind being CC'd on things. I would rather know everything that's going on and have a paper trail of everything so that I can properly escalate things instead of a he said, she said thing. Another thing that, again, it's just one of these things that are being leaned on, the Fleetio thing. 152 recently was on that medical rollover on the 101. They rolled up on scene. I don't know if you guys saw pictures, but 2 of the tires were absolutely bald. Would this normally be something that I'd say that crews were not checking their truck off completely and checking these things that, let's be honest, a lot of people just skim over? This hasn't become a well-inspected routine. It's mostly supplies. Most people don't check like their oil or check their tires. These things I personally do, even being the medic, unless it says the oil levels, I personally actually don't check the oil, but I do always check tires. Fleetio is what the company is going to lean on. So if you guys do not have Fleetio access, again, contact me. I had escalated a list that I was given before. I have been advised that these things should be fixed. And again, this is something the company is going to ask straight away. If there's problems with your truck, did you report it on Fleetio? I am telling you right now, if you are in a system and your truck is not operating appropriately and it's still functional, but there's problems, fill it out on Fleetio and also send a message, an email to all the supervisors that are in your city and CC me about your truck. Took 158 in today for tires. It was bad, steel belts showing. Definitely need to keep on top of our trucks. Yeah, and so the whole problem, if you guys do not have access to Fleetio, I'm not going to go through this. I'm not going to go through this chat and write all this stuff down. You guys have my email at this point. I have posted it everywhere. Please email me and let me know you do not have Fleetio. So the 152 situation, they pulled up on scene in the middle of the lanes of the 101, and their tires blew. One of them blew completely, just wires exposed. The reasoning why this is an issue is because, in my perspective, that truck was downed as the dedicated for 2 weeks, and one of the things that was worked on and said was that the tires were rotated. So hearing that and getting your truck, maybe that's not something that you would pay attention to, especially when it was like a day or two before. So how those two tires remained on a truck in that condition, to me, is kind of quite wild. However, I'm letting you guys know we are bottom of the totem pole when it comes to accountability, right? We need to make sure that we are doing all the things that this company is asking us to do. That way, these things do not blow back on you. And these things are, this is why I'm doing this. I want to properly communicate and have education to you guys on debriefing. This is something I have been here for almost 5 years and never had. And I don't find that fair to you guys to be disciplined or trained and coached about things that the company is not giving you the proper tools to do. So let's beat it to the punch. And let's make sure that we're doing all these things I'm talking about so that we can be in compliance at the level that the company is asking. That way, when this type of dysfunction and the things that are happen, there is no other excuse other than their accountability. And I need a paper trail. That all comes down also to the supervisors. If you are having conflict with your supervisors, the way they are talking to you, the way they're approaching you, acting completely inappropriate, please email me and let me know. And then that way we can have a discussion about what's going on. But I need paper trail. It cannot just be, this is what happened. I need to have a written incident from you guys, because a lot of this over time has just been, hey, I talked to somebody. Hey, I called ODS. And let's be honest, we get to the point where we've done that so many times, it's like we don't even want to do it anymore because nothing happens. So let's proactively change that.
So talking about that and going to, is there going to be policies in place, because we have the new Zofran Benadryl thing that's locked up. Also, the other day, I got talked to for trying to get a write-up, and because I called out on a holdover because I had an appointment prior earlier that morning, and I didn't put my drug box away in my 24-hour truck, and I had no idea about it, and they tried to write me up for it. Is there going to be a policy that states that now? Because there was never a policy that went out about that. Because usually,
I 100% agree with you. There's not a policy written about that, which is why I'm addressing all of these things regarding drugs and things that these policies are going to be coming out. I had a direct conversation with DuPont and Lindsay that they will send out these policies. I educated them on the need and necessity of it. Let's be honest. A lot of people have either unsubscribed from the emails because of the amount of what people would call spam because of the posting for shifts that are open, or they just click okay and go through all the things, right? So the goal of this is to have an open platform, town hall style communication to make sure people are hearing what the company is doing, what is happening. And yes, these are going to become a policy. You should not be getting written up for that.
I didn't. I had a union rep and we talked about it, and it came down to, like, one, there was no policy in place that states it. There was just an acknowledgement that went out, and it was never signed because it was never a policy saying that this is now the policy. Do you basically acknowledge it and then you sign your signature? Because I think it was an email that when Gary was still here, he put out, like, I think almost a year ago, maybe even more. And honestly, like you said, you log on to ePro because a lot of people don't. anymore. We just go to the time clock shortcut we have. And then when you log on, you just do acknowledge to get them away.
Yeah. So again, this is why I'm building out all of these messenger platforms. I apologize, I have not done one for Scottsdale or Chandler yet. I am quite busy, and these are all the systems that I have direct contact with. So I will be building out a Scottsdale and Chandler one as well. The point is to build community. Let's have fun. We can send memes, joke, but also we're in the field and we're able to communicate directly with each other on a platform that the company is not doing for us. So yes, you are 100% correct, and that was handled correctly. You should not be held accountable for any policy changes or policies that have not been presented to you on paper or something that was acknowledged. That being said, if you're doing something way out of line and, you know, something that they are able to determine as being grossly negligent, things can be escalated.
I mean, that was a given, but I was just talking, I was just
Absolutely.
using that as an example
Absolutely.
of trying to be, I guess, supervisors trying to police when there's no policy in place, and then people who don't realize that get written up for something that they have no acknowledgement prior to.
You're 100% correct.
Hey, this is Aaron over in IF. I have a question.
Yes,
Is
young
there Fleetio is
grasshopper.
good for supply? Hey, Sensei, good to hear you, man. Fleetio is great for supply and mechanical issues on the trucks, but is there any way we can institute a cleanliness standard like across the board? Because all the headbutts I've had with corporate and with the supervisors over there is all based on, you know, they're handing me a truck that I would say is not good enough, and they say, "Oh yeah, this is fine." So there's a miscommunication or disagreement of standards of what is or is not good enough, and there's no writing on it. So if I'm handed a truck that's clearly not good enough for me, but a supervisor is telling me, take this truck out right now or you're getting written up because it is good enough according to their standards, I have no recourse because there's nothing saying what is or is not clean. So what do we do about that?
Absolutely. And I can speak from my own side. I've had a conversation with you before about this as well. I had the same problem going into IF. If anybody's worked in IF or is currently in IF, I'm not sure if it's even as bad as it used to be. But you would get on shift and you would get a different truck every shift. And those trucks look like dirty dorm rooms. The things that I would find under the chairs and behind, it just grossly negligent. My recommendation to anybody experiencing these problems, I always took pictures. So the first thing I do, I open that truck and I see what's going on. I take pictures of everything. Why? Because when that supervisor or somebody is barking at me to hurry up so I can go jump a call, because let's be honest, there's always calls waiting in IF, right? But my standard is this ambulance is going to be at the standard of cleanliness that I would put my family in it. So when I'm being handed these vehicles and they're in that condition, I will do my due diligence to make that ambulance clean. Now, I highly recommend that you take pictures because when they confront you, you say, would you like your family and our patients that are our number one priority in the back of this ambulance in this condition? And if they say yes, and it's in that bad of a condition, please email me with those pictures and I will escalate it.
I can deal with that. I take a lot of pictures. The thing is, you know, I guess what I'm saying is moving forward, can we have some sort of written down standard or some equivalent to Fleetio of what is and is not good enough? Because they're going to disagree with me as far as what isn't good enough. That's kind of the issue I'm having.
Sure. I'm going to write that down. I guess, right, that is a pretty subjective term, but I mean, if there's just trash and gunk and, you know, uncleanliness and you have pictures to prove what that looks like, I think it's quite understandable in the meantime. But yes, I'm writing that down for us to address on how we can determine what's considered clean policy.
There is currently in the Maricopa manual policy or policy manual. There is a statement about like the trash needs to be taken out, the gas needs to be refilled. But as far as like sharps containers being emptied, you know, things being put back where they're supposed to go, that does not currently exist. As far as ops is concerned, the point of the VSTs was that we would get the keys from them. At the end of our shift, we return it, and the VST is supposed to come out and inspect the truck and make sure everything is put away and cleaned up the way that it is. And that is not how they're being utilized. And that's a big part of the problem too.
That is absolutely correct. They are not utilized correctly per that specific procedure.
Yeah, we had several problems with VSTs when we would do truck swaps, and they would be like, yeah, the VSTs will like help you do a truck swap, or they'll make sure like your backup is ready to go, and we get there and like nothing has been done. It's been like either empty, supplies missing, certain things not moved over, or nothing moved over in this case, and whatnot.
All right, I'm writing down truck cleanliness policy and VSTs held accountable.
I mean,
Right,
look at the
Isn't that supposed to be their job, the stocking and the cleaning of the trucks?
That was my understanding of the use of the VSTs. That's what I was told the VSTs were supposed to be doing, was to make sure the trucks were clean, were stocked, to help with truck swaps and whatnot.
That is what the VST job description states, is that they're supposed to be doing all of that. They weren't hiring VSTs for a while. I know they were getting individuals from the EMT cohort who had not yet passed national to be VSTs. So a lot of them don't, if I go in and ask for a piece of equipment, they don't know what that piece of equipment is, and they don't know the difference between like different types of needles. So that's a large reason why things are always missing out of the trucks. And I'm pretty sure that we don't have day VSTs anymore. We only have a singular night VST because of whatever reason ops came up with.
All right, so part of it sounds like a staffing issue has now adjusted their role, maybe. Let me look in the chat, see what else we got going on here. Da-da-da. How do we self-police when units are taking 1.5 hours at the hospital fight? So yeah, clean strike, call the crew out. The best way to do it is if they're not answering, if you're at the hospital and they're there and you have a conversation with them, if they're not at the hospital and you're sitting posted on the block, then call ODS and let them know so they can call dispatch or call the crew and figure it out. If that's not getting resolved in a timely manner, email that supervisor and CC me in it. That way we have a track record of what's going on. I try to cut the crews loose that come with me on RN1 calls because my charting can take forever. That's pretty nice of you. See, this is working together. Kind of like a par list, but for cleanliness. Just to jump in the VST thing, every time an ops are just sitting in the room on their phones doing nothing. Yeah, I don't know if that's always what they're doing, but I have seen that kind of trend myself.
Hey, Noel,
Yes.
you mentioned something about this having like a squad of people throughout our systems. Is that for like making sure that the trucks are staying stocked and not overstocked, or what exactly were you implying on that?
Right. So I'm trying to implement ways to build out crews of people to address the dysfunction in our systems. So and again, this is all root level. This is all building out for creativity and your guys' interaction, working with me. There's quite a few of you that have been supportive and helping me, and I'm super thankful for it. Because this is a team effort, right? Like, I can say all this, but if you guys don't want this to be a better place and all of these same things happen, like, that's just what it is. Like, we can't force people. Eventually people are just going to get fired, to be honest with you. Maricopa is definitely going to be coming in with more strict policies. unfortunately, as with anything, there's bad apples that ruin things for everyone. But yeah, if you guys have ideas, please email me or talk to me directly. The few squads that I was building out so far is a communication squad. That's going to be a liaison between dispatch and crews on proper radio etiquette, and building relationship with dispatch and crews. There has been quite a bit of animosity in the past with certain characters. I don't feel like that's the same as it used to be, but definitely room for improvement, especially on the radio etiquette that's taking up a lot of space that's unnecessary. Another one is I'm in the Glendale Fire Department system, so that's the start of this one. As this grows out and it builds, then I'll go to each system. But basically a squad of people that have connections with captains and people of higher ranks, that they will be the squad of liaisons that are communicating with the fire department, understanding the current issues that may be happening, so we can beat it to the punch, so these types of issues that have happened recently aren't happening anymore. And also just a way to build out community. It'd be nice eventually, like, we'd be able to go work out in the gyms. We're able to go have a dinner with them. These things can be built out, but it's going to take quality time, and us just investing into relationship with them at a proper level. So those are the only. And then also a safety, that's in the CBA, is a safety committee. So that'll be stuff like trucks, station conditions, etc. If you're interested in those things, feel free to hit me up.
Because like one thing with especially communication, I feel like is one of our biggest downfalls in the company. Sarah and I were at ops the other day, and 150 has been down at the shop almost 2 weeks for supposedly a 2-day fix. And I even asked the mechanics, I was like, hey, is 150 still out of service, or is it ready for pickup? And they're like, oh, it's been ready. They called a certain supervisor about it, and that supervisor was made aware that truck was ready for pickup. And then that truck swap didn't happen for like another 3 days.
Yeah, we're in 50 now. It got switched Sunday. No, yes, Sunday.
Yeah, so Friday we were informed that it was finished on Thursday.
So yeah, here's a good one. I'll add that to my list. A fleet squad. So it'll have a couple crews from each system, and then maybe Daniel Rooney and Kenny, who are already at operations, who can be in communication along with me, that I have direct phone numbers to fleet, to make sure that we're on top of all of this stuff, right? Like, as these issues are coming up with our trucks, we are communicating within our own channels on top of communicating with the ODS. So already telling them, but also taking additional accountability to that.
But yeah, and then like also just keeping track of trucks. Like, okay, well,
yeah. Wait, I'm sorry. Do we still not know where 157 is?
So it's like keeping track of a truck that's in fleet. Stay on top of it. That way, almost 9 months go by, and they go, "Wait, your truck's in our shop," and they have no idea. They have no idea where it is, and then nonchalantly find it sitting parked in a dealership.
This is what I'm talking about, right? These conversations are not being had at. It's like, we all know this. It's like doctors who are prescribing medications and taking care of a patient, and none of them talk to each other. They're only talking to this one person, and it's like the miscommunication is just unreal. So yeah, let's make a fleet squad. I 1,000% agree.
Because as far as I know about the situation with 154 and 157 and 611, is it's already been escalated up to Steve Blackburn. But as far as like communication of going, yeah, we know the truck is there, but why is it still there? What's still waiting on it? Have we not paid the bill, or is there actually still a part that they're waiting on? That stuff that should be relayed. That way, I'm on we're on our 6th backup or whatever since then. And having to constantly swap into a backup at ops, and then this falls down onto, the cleanliness. We get into these trucks and there's smushed up, Uncrustables or trash that have their own little colony of mold growing, a whole little ecosystem.
That's good
so
microbe. Go ahead and lick it. It's good for your gut. No, I'm just kidding. Dude, I feel you. I've switched into 3 different trucks in the middle of the summer. That's my record. And the Mr. Magoo nonsensical plans that are created as well are a problem. If you're being told to do something that makes no sense at all, just call me.
Right.
Just say,
and
and you may get some feedback when you're and things maybe get escalated to I'm telling you what to do. Okay, hang up the phone, call me directly, let me know what's going on.
Because you remember the Super Bowl where we got trucks that had no oxygen, no way of delivering oxygen, no defib pads, no gurney batteries, no monitor batteries, no anything really. And those trucks sat at off for several months that were under supervision of directors and management and the VSTs. And we were told that they were supposedly fully stocked, ready to go and clean, but we get them and they got 20 pounds of bugs and dust on it and nothing in the compartments.
Sure. And unacceptable, right? But at this point, let's not refer to past practice anymore. Let's do pushing forward practices, right? So as of now, these types of issues are being escalated. We are no longer going to have this as just a normality of our company. So and the people that are chatting in this chat, 100% correct. This shouldn't also be an excuse, right? This is a working relationship, right? Just because, and thank you for posting that, Sarah. That is their job, right? But that doesn't give an excuse for people to be messy and dirty and treat it like a dirty Motel 6 and it's not your truck, you don't care. Let's start taking care of our trucks and our stations. We spend more time in these places than a lot of us do with our family. So again, I like that, Mr. Day, you get the credit and the kudos. It is no longer past practice. It is pushing forward practices. So let's no longer look at the past on how things were, and let's find ways to fix the problems, because everyone has a pressure point and people will be held accountable. But let's also look at ourselves and see how we can improve what we're doing. Also, thanks, Clint. Yeah, if anyone is a paying union member and you have not received your EMS Week backpack from the union, please text Clint or me. Additionally, I've said this on platforms. My union phone was unable to be forwarded to my personal phone since I have FirstNet. I'm not going to be 3 phone carrying trap phone dude on shift with a unit phone, my personal phone, and my union phone. So if I do not respond to you guys within 24 hours on the union phone number that's listed, go ahead and email me, because that does go directly to my personal phone. If you have my personal number, please feel free to use that. Otherwise, I'm just not trying to give that out to every single person out there. Is there any Motel 6? I think Lindell. Is there any other questions?
Yeah, Noel, can I shout something out real quick?
Hey, shout.
All right. Well, I'm mainly talking to our female employees, but I've been reaching out to a lot of people at our company who have been pregnant at the company and trying to get a feel for their experience. And all I've been hearing is there's more and more issues than I thought. Everybody's had a different experience. Every case has been treated differently. I'm trying to gather more stories so I can kind of get more of a baseline and create a focus group. I want policies put in place to kind of protect our pregnant employees and future pregnant employees. If anybody has a story that they're willing to share, I will not be relaying it with names, but please hit me up on my email. I want to get something together, start protecting our pregnant employees.
Yeah, thanks for saying that, Rooney. You know, we've had this conversation before. I'm a huge advocate of that. I think the way that our private ambulance system is treating women that are pregnant is just atrocious. Like, there's no maternity, paternity leave, and we are in the healthcare system. Does that make any sense? No. I've heard people that are afraid to be pregnant because they're going to lose their source of income, or the fact that they're going to be gone and they are pregnant, and, you know, now they don't have a source of income for months. And I don't know what other incidents you're referring to. I would love to hear about it. But I can't speak from experience and let you know I will be a huge advocate of that and also work on that in the CBA.
Talking about that, it was my old partner. He had a problem when it came to that, when his fiance was pregnant, with the FMLA and the company.
I want to hear about all of it.
Okay.
Send me anything and everything.
Okay, I'll send you an email about what happened, because it was a huge, like, several months problem for him and the company.
So yeah, let that be known. Daniel Rooney will be the advocate of women in pregnancy, and I will support the man. Yeah, please put it in email so that we have paper trail to refer to, because personally, I just think it's unacceptable. So.
Thank you, everybody.
What happened? Are you done, Rooney?
Yeah, we got a call.
All right. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, everybody. Noel. Have a good day.
You too, sir. What happened to wash cars? 181 had one, now it's gone, but even so, would never work at the wash station. Yeah, I hear you on that. Also, gas carts. 153 hasn't had one for quite a while.
I know there was issue with wash cards, especially when the old company was like switching over, and there's actually at one point where the like Maricopa wasn't paying them as they were supposed to for like 2 or 3 months.
For the wash card place?
Yeah.
All right, I'll follow.
That's why they were all shut off in Glendale at one point.
I was informed that those cards, and maybe it's cross-wired and maybe there's some truth or not behind it, but I was informed, and I actually visibly saw there was a transition of the machines that were used. So the old gas cards had a different logo on them, and then there was new sets of gas cards given out when they replaced those machines that process the credit cards. But fair enough. I will write that. Wash cards and gas cards. I feel like that should be 100% something on each truck. However, I will say this. They need to find out, how do I get a wash card for the fly car? Yeah, again, I'm going to add this into the stuff I'm going to follow up on. We need to find a system that enables these cards to stay with the truck, because there was a point in time where most trucks had both of these things and they disappear. Whether people leave them in their pocket because they slide them and they go home. I don't know what happened with the wrench one. There was like gigantic O2 wrenches that were attached, and somehow still the cards went missing. So there's got to be some type of system that will work to enable both of these cards to stay within the truck or stay on the keys, something. So with airplane Wi-Fi, I've been in and out of the meeting. Has there been any movement on a retention bonus? My man, you just love the money. Again, so I brought it up. Again, it's something I'm gonna follow up on. These things they're out of my control, right? Like the CBA is in negotiation this year, and money is obviously a hot topic for everybody, right? You drive by and you see that In-N-Out is making more money than an EMT, which is just insane. Trust me, guys, I agree with you, but I'm not going to be some cheesy politician and just sit there and whisper all the things you guys want to hear. Hey, I'm going to get you better money. Hey, I'm going to get you this. Like, we all want that. I agree. That's something I'm gonna fight for. But at this point, I'm doing everything that's in my creativity and in my power. And now start in 1950. Sheesh. Yeah, man. I am doing everything I can right now with what I got. And in the meantime, I will be definitely fighting for better pay and benefits. Again, we're in a good place because AMR is negotiating the ends of their contract, and that is going to be a baseline for us to have for a competitive market. So anything money related is going to come regarded to CBA.
Hello.
Hello.
So how's everyone's day?
Good. It just got really quiet all of a sudden.
I think Noel either accidentally muted himself or accidentally disconnected again.
Technology's not Noel's friend today.
Check, check, 1, 2. Anybody else got something to say?
So are we going to be having coordinating another meetings like this, a town hall, but including, like directors or Michelle or whatever, kind of like how we did previously with those town halls, the COPA ones?
Yeah, can you guys hear me now?
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. So I mean, that's definitely something I'm gonna push. As we all know, the previous time that happened, I don't know how many people are aware. A year ago, I wrote an internal report, and that's where a lot of this originated from. I'm gonna push for that. That takes a lot of organization on Maricopa side, but what we're doing right now is going to escalate it to that, right? So again, this is going to happen once a month. I think I'm going to do it on the final Tuesday of every month, somewhere between the 12 and 3 o'clock, like we did today. But yeah, that's definitely on my radar in the discussion that I'll be having. I also have another meeting on Tuesday with Michelle and Casey.
Okay. Yeah, because I know like when I was, they had Alan or whoever the hell the bald guy is. I think it's Alan.
Yeah.
And I mean, as much as it was nice having somebody at that high of a level there, being able to relay the information, he was kind of pretty much useless and basically shot everything down, all our concerns and whatnot. He just didn't seem to care about.
I do have to give credit where it's due. The town hall that I went to, and that was actually the first time I met Casey. Alan was actually pretty responsive and took some accountability on a lot of things that were not happening that were in the CBA, such as the station conditions and et cetera. You got to understand he's a businessman, and they're making business decisions, and that's why it's really important that we're voicing all of this stuff, right? Again, this is a recorded line. This is going to be posted. So it's important that we raise our voices, right? Like if we don't speak up, which is what the union is here for, is to speak up for you guys and get us better benefits, pay, and working conditions. We've got to all speak up and come together. Again, it's important for the paper trails that I have. But yeah, that's definitely something I'm going to push for, is for another follow-up town hall where everyone can come, and management and the unions there, and everyone can hear from management directly and voice your concerns again. In the meantime, I'll be holding this space. So you guys, I will be doing the same thing next month, and I'll go through, it's probably not as many topics, I would hope, because a lot of this stuff was stuff that's been happening for a while to address. Yeah, does anybody have any other feedback, questions, concerns before we end this? Speak now or forever hold your peace. All right, you guys. Well, hey, this meeting has come to an end. It is my honor to serve you as your VP. Please feel free to contact me via email or phone if anything comes about. And please, please, please follow all of the rules and updates that I have given you. And let's work together to make this a better place. Peace.